this title, Guiding Our Youth. And we have a saying in our organization, Peace in the Hood, that if you're miseducated, misguided, misinformed, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. You dig? And so we call it mistaken thinking, you know, and I don't mean like with an eye, you know what I'm saying? So colloquially, that may not be correct, but I'm saying something about that, the thinking that a lot of our young people engage in, it doesn't smell too good. And so you got to get a checkup from the neck up. And the only way you get a checkup from the neck up is to deal with what's between your ears. And I ain't talking about your brain, I'm talking about your mind. I have another saying that says that mental and spiritual confusion produces dangerous and deadly consequences. And I'm sure everybody out here knows what I'm talking about. It means that if somebody can influence your thinking to the point that you take on their thoughts as yours, and your attitude becomes their attitude, and your actions become their actions, you're really a tool and a fool for somebody else. And so gangs, as they relate to Cleveland right now, are being influenced and hypnotized by rappers, by people that they see engaged in negative behavior, who are in and out of facilities and prisons. They've seen people shot. The young man who got shot last night, he's been around homicides. He was a part of a street organization. Allegedly, the man who was a person of interest, well, I can't say his name. If he is who I know he is, he was standing next to an 11-year-old that got shot about 10 years ago down on 40th, right outside of a rec center. But I'm not going to name him because he's a person of interest, so to speak, you know what I'm talking about. But the bottom line is this, is that the impact of gang violence and the impact of crime and the impact of young people who feel that they have to have a weapon to going back and forth between schools and stash their straps, as they say, outside across the street in the bando, y'all know what I'm talking about. What it does, it gives them a false sense of power. And I'm going to tell you John Adams' students. I was walking up Leonard Crave about a month ago, and a young man came down the street, and I know him, but I'm not going to say his name, and some other young men were walking east on Leonard Crave, and he pulled out a gun. He actually pulled out a gun, and that was his greeting. And one guy threw his hands up like that, and the other one did like that. So he was actually greeting him with a gun, pointing a gun at him. And wasn't nothing funny about it. It's insanity, it's pathology, it's insane in the membrane, but that was his way of showing some kind of, that's his greeting, instead of, shaking hands. Now, after he put the gun in this, little slide and then shook hands and all that and played that game, but this is the level of depravity that some of our youth are on. So if he's influencing some young men, and then some other young men are influencing young men, and then now you've got the girls who are, now they're vain, you got the heartless felons, you got the heartless bees, and the this and that, and they're setting up young men to get robbed, and they want to gang bang, and they want to be just as hard as the guys. So what happens is that's why Ohio has the 4th largest prison population in the country. That's why Ohio's prison population is so large, and in these facilities, Cleveland has the largest clique in every penitentiary. So I know some of you out here got parents that's in prison. You got cousins and uncles that are in prison. And so the prison is what we call the prison industrial complex, meaning that slavery was not outlawed in the penitentiary. For those of you who are not aware of that, when Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, it did not include prisons. So you can be a slave in a joint. And right now, the largest growth industry in America is the prison population, private prison, of which Ohio has a supermax prison in Youngstown. So if you go in prison, you're going to wear what they tell you to wear. You're going to wear flip-flops. You're going to wear the same pants, the same underwear, eat the same food, and catch the same hell. And the consequences that are those inmates that are in there, they become institutionalized. So it's very important that we, and when I say a gang, I don't mean like there's some people in here that are in the gang, but I don't mean like a negative gang. It's just a group. But be involved in a group that's positive, that will have a positive result. But if you're engaged in violence and crime and you're carrying weapons and you're engaged in the kind of behavior that produces the results that you don't want in your life, then you have to rewind your life and find out why you got that mistaken thinking. It all goes back to the mind. Mental and spiritual confusion produces dangerous and deadly consequences.